Hi, welcome back for another 7 Caillou challenge. This one's called Challenge, but you'll notice that some of the vowels and, well, the L's too are converted into numbers. And they call this the process of nerdify. So we're going to implement this nerdify method where it takes a string as input and sort of substitutes certain letters with numerical characters. So this is a pretty simplified version. It takes A's and converts them to 4s. E's get converted to 3, and lowercase l gets converted to 1. And they give you another example here with fundamentals. I think that's pretty clear. If you want to pause the video and make sure you understand the description, go ahead and keep reading. Otherwise, we'll move to solve this problem. I'll show you a couple solutions. We'll sort of build our own, and then we'll do a LINQ method. So let's go ahead and get into the solution. I'll remove this stub here. And for the first solution, I wanted to implement this on our own, not using any LINQ. Again, this is 7 Caillou. This is still, we've got the training wheels off, but this is still a beginner level challenge. So the strategy will be, as hopefully you may have came up with, we're going to iterate over each character in the string, the input, and we're going to examine those characters, and we're going to take the appropriate action if we encounter these certain characters that are to be replaced. So I'm going to build a string as output. You could use a string builder here since we're going to be constantly appending to this value, or you can use a regular string like I did here for this simple challenge. And then with the idea being that we're going to return the result when we're done. But our main process, we're going to go over each character one at a time. So we can use a for each loop for this. For each char ch, I like to use ch for my variable name, in string, the input. We'll get our curly braces to define the scope of our for each loop. And then you may have imagined we'll use a simple if-else kind of thing to check the character's value. So we could say if the character is equal to lowercase a, or double vertical bar, logical or, the character equals capital A. Then we could say result plus equals to concatenate. Remember, plus equals is the same as saying result equals result plus whatever you want to add. But they give us this nice short syntax here. Result plus equals, and I'll put the character for it. Notice I'm not putting the integer for, right? I mean, it might convert on its own because string knows how to, would have a built-in way of handling that. But I'm going to do this properly and say, notice I use the single ticks. Those denote characters where double quotes are for strings. So I'm saying append the character for. And I'll say else if ch is equal to lowercase e or character equals uppercase e. We'll say result, as you imagine, plus equals, look at the rules, and it was the character 3. And then, oh, I'm sorry, I used else here. Let's say else if, because we have multiple conditions to check for here. Then I'll say else if character equals lowercase l. Notice they didn't say uppercase, they just had lowercase. I'll say result plus equals the character 1. And then finally, else, just say result plus equals the character itself. It means we don't have to do anything. We just pass the character through. It's not one that's targeted to be translated into anything. And then finally, return that. This is just a really simple way to step through this and get the output that we need. So let's go ahead and test. Okay, we had a problem. Let's see what we did wrong. Oh, do I need to handle the error case? So this is why it's important to read the instructions, right? Notifies a string, parameters, return value. Notice, you know, if you scroll down, maybe you didn't see that if you didn't scroll either. We have exceptions if string is null. So we can add a check for that before we even bother processing and trying to access something that's null. We can say if the input or I'm sorry, we'll use the string class. If string, I believe it's called is null or empty. String, we'll say throw, what kind of exception do they want us to throw? Argument null exception. Throw a new argument null exception. Something like that. Let's see if that gets us there. Okay, that was happy. And we'll hit the attempt. Okay, we hit on our submission. Let's see what our stack trace is. They want me to pass something into the let's hit the attempt. Okay, that worked. They wanted me to put something in here. Anyway, we passed here. So now let's try another version of this. Like I told you at the front of this video, we can use a LINQ method, just so you can see another way. You can stop here if you'd like to see a little bit more. Let's bring in the system LINQ namespace so I can use those methods. And then I'll leave my sort of null input handler there. We can do something like this. We could say return string select. Remember, select is, you feel free to look this up, we've covered this in other videos, but select sort of gives you the opportunity to transform each, in this case character, but each element of whatever your collection is. In our case, it's a string that's a collection of characters. So it allows you to, you pass whatever, a variable name for whatever each element is in the collection. In this case, it's a character, so I like to use the ch variable name. So I can say, for each one of those, I'm going to define some scope and do something similar like we did before. And you'll see the similarity here with using the LINQ method. You could do it almost the same way. In fact, I probably didn't need to delete all that. You could say if the character is equal to lowercase a, I'm sorry, or character equals uppercase a, you would return 4. But this is probably good for you to see how you can do this within a lambda expression too. If character equals E or character equals capital E, return 3. Else if character equals L, return 1, the character, else return CH. And then notice how the, well, it's not an IDE, but the sort of this window here, if you highlight the punctuation marks, you can see where they're matched to. So this covers the whole select statement. Now, notice that I can't return this because if you remember, select returns in what's called an IEnumerable, in this case of type character. So that doesn't match the method signature of string, right? So you can wrap this whole thing. There's a couple ways to do this. We could use string join to combine the elements of this IEnumerable of type char, or, which I think we've done in other videos. I've probably shown you both ways, but let's just do it this way. We'll return a new string that will sort of construct out of all this thing. And if you're savvy, you'll know that we can't make the string class, and you can look this up if you go to the string class, you can't construct a string from the IEnumerable of type character directly. But what these LINQ IEnumerables, they have a method that allows you to convert them to arrays. So we can say, take that whole thing we constructed, that IEnumerable, and just turn it into an array. Okay, so notice the closing parenthesis matches with this. So we're taking that solution we made and we're constructing a string out of it, because the string class does have a constructor for an array of characters. And so this toArray is what converts that whole collection to an array of characters. So hopefully that makes sense. And then this should work the same like it did before. I'll hit test. Let's see if I messed anything up. No, it looks good. I'll hit the attempt. And we're green again. So we're clear to submit and earn our Kata points here. So don't forget to do that. And then of course we'll check in on some other solutions. Before you submit, If you want some extra credit, go ahead and figure out how to do this using regular expressions. When we go ahead to submit, I'm sure we're going to see something to that effect. So now's your chance to pause. I'm about to submit and collect my points. I'm going to leave mine like this. And yeah, you'll see this Regex. That's short for regular expressions. If you see things that confuse you, hit me up in the comments, or feel free to consult the documentation on your own. Otherwise, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for the likes and subs. I will see you in another video.